Let's start, of course, with the biggest story of the weekend. Scott, for the second straight week, the number one team in the country loses. This time it's Ohio State losing at Wisconsin. Same Wisconsin team that went to East Lansing and lost and didn't look particularly good, even, considering. Yeah. Terrell Pryor struggling as well. What do we make of this? Is Ohio State, again, going to be a disappointing team? This senior class, 4 straight years, co-Big Ten champs, but 4 straight years of can't get it done when it matters?
Well, that's tough. I mean, even the past couple of years, Ohio State's been a team who is dominant in the regular season, and given they may not have won their bowl game. But yeah, Wisconsin was a much better team on Saturday night against Ohio State, starting obviously from the opening kickoff, a 97-yard touchdown.
Right.
And for me, I wonder what this says about Michigan State more than I wonder about what it says about Ohio State, because if Wisconsin really is as good as they looked on Saturday, they got beaten pretty soundly by Michigan State. So this definitely makes the Big Ten race and the race for the Rose Bowl much, much more interesting, I'd say.
Yeah, John Clay, Heisman candidacy, maybe bolstered. His stats weren't very good, though, Saturday.
Still rushed for 105 yards
right.
against a solid rush defense.
2 touchdowns.
And what you saw in this game that differed from the Michigan State game for Wisconsin is they got up early instead of having to come from behind. Right. Scott Tolzien's still a solid quarterback, but Wisconsin wins games on the ground. And this game, they got up 21-0 very early on. Right. And from that point on, they could just run the ball and run the clock down and play their style of football. And that's why they won that game. They were able to dictate the pace, and Ohio State just wasn't able to come back.
Right. Yeah, John Clay, 17 carries against Michigan State?
Yeah.
That is a very big difference. John Clay is one of the best running backs in the country.
Yeah, for sure. And also a very large human being. If you ever get to meet him in person, as I have, you wouldn't. He's so big, you wouldn't think he's a beat running back. Also, Illinois, Michigan State winning that game 26-6, but again the beneficiary of 2 red zone turnovers for Illinois, in addition to 2 other ones. That game was 6-3 going into that fourth quarter. Michigan State, they got the win. That's about all you can say about Michigan State this week. And then finally, favorite topic. I don't know why you're still here. You've already been fired. Tim Brewster shares a last name and many other things with Adam Brewster. Probably 99% of his genes as well.
98%.
98%? Okay. Which is the same you share with a monkey, but that's a different story. Fired after losing against Purdue. Scott, Mike Leach says he's interested in this job. Mike Leach, Michigan secondary. Mike Leach, Michigan secondary. Mike Leach, Michigan secondary.
I don't know what to say about that.
Right.
Mike Leach seems to be a good fit at a place like Texas Tech, known for sort of more of a red rebel type of attitude. But
Minnesota, but not a golden gopher type of attitude. Sorry,
yeah, Minnesota seems like not a very natural fit for Mike Leach. But we'll see. If Mike Leach came to my doorstep and said, "Hey, I want to coach your football team who has not been very good in the past," I'd jump at it. He knows what he's doing as a football coach.
Right, and one thing to be mentioned, though, is Mike Leach is drawing on that really, really rich talent base in Texas, where you just have players like you don't have to recruit farther than 100 miles away. Mm-hmm. Minnesota, kind of a different story.
Yeah.
But Brewster, how big of a headache, on top of the headache that your dad just got fired as Minnesota coach, would you have if Mike Leach was hired by the Golden Gophers?
Unless something amazing would happen to this Michigan secondary between Mike Leach being hired and, I guess, between now and Mike Leach being hired, it would be a nightmare. And certainly other secondaries in the Big Ten, like the one in East Lansing, would be in trouble also. But I don't know if Mike Leach would be able to get the type of talent he needs to when you remove him from a football-rich state like Texas, where they grow football players on trees.
Right, they grow them on trees. This upcoming week, interesting in the Big Ten as well. Michigan State travels to Ryan Field to play Northwestern. Trap game. And also Wisconsin, Iowa, which will be a really great game to watch. Let's move on to the national scene, though. Of course, Ohio State lost, but also there's this complete chaos now in the top 5 of the BCS. Oklahoma, Oregon, Boise State, Auburn, TCU. Number 6 is LSU, who's going to play Auburn this upcoming week, which will be a great game. So one of those 2 teams drops out as well. That actually is not up to date, that second part. Let's start, though. Arkansas-Auburn, Scott. I'm pretty sure Auburn scored about 10 points in like 200 games in the late 90s and early 2000s, and now scores 65 in one game. Cam Newton is legit against some legit defenses, apparently.
Yes, Cam Newton is legit, and the other person who is also legit, Gus Malzahn, the offensive coordinator of Auburn. This really is just absolutely incredible to me. I remember watching Auburn for what it seems like 5 years, always losing a 10-7 football game. So it is amazing to see. They've had some close calls in the past couple games, but they really handed it to Arkansas. Obviously, when you give up 43 points, 65-43, you have some issues to work out on defense too. But Cam Newton is looking very, very good.
Was Ryan Mallett knocked out of that game with a concussion? His backup comes in and throws 4 touchdowns himself. So maybe Ryan Mallett isn't always cracked up to be. Let's move on to Texas, Nebraska. Adam Brewster and Taylor Martinez, bottled up by the Longhorns defense.
Taylor Martinez threw for 63 passing yards and rushed for only 21 yards, by far his worst game. Now, not to be outdone, Garrett Gilbert, while he did rush for 71 yards, only threw for 62 yards. So Garrett Gilbert, still a long way to go for Texas, but a big win for a team that was really struggling, got blown out by UCLA at home, and just has been having a really hard time finding its identity after Colt McCoy left. Only 1 turnover on the game for Texas, or between both teams. So it was just a sound defensive battle. And Texas was just able to make less mistakes, and they were able to shut down Taylor Martinez better than Nebraska was able to shut down Garrett Gilbert.
I've never seen a pooch punt work so poorly as that.
They should take a
lesson. It never really
lesson.
occurred, huh?
They should watch Michigan games more often.
Right, or Brian Greasy back in the day, and now Tate and Denard. But I've never seen a pooch punt return for a touchdown. That was just something of note in that game. Scott, South Carolina, Kentucky, talk about letdown game. Steve Spurrier seemingly indifferent to the fact that they lost. He just didn't seem very upset when South Carolina dropped that game. Can South Carolina ever be a major football power?
It doesn't really seem like it. I mean, they had their big opportunity. They beat Alabama. Time to really take a step up on the national stage, and then they lose to Kentucky after being up 28-10 at halftime and having a chance to tie it right at the end of the game. An interesting play call from the old ball coach, getting it intercepted right at the end. South Carolina, not so great, and dare I say it, maybe the SEC is not that great. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Well, maybe that's just so deep that the bad teams can even beat the good teams on a given day.
Well, it could be. The SEC West certainly hasn't had a problem. LSU and Auburn are the 4 and 6 in the BCS. It's been the SEC East that's been, which used to be, as one of my friends put it, a vortex of awesomeness. it is no longer said vortex, and the SEC West has been having a solid season. At Mississippi State went into Florida and beat the Gators, and talk about a strange season for Florida fans.
Yeah, that was the next topic of discussion. 3 straight losses now for Florida. All close games, we'll give them that. But, struggles against Miami, Ohio. I think my favorite Minnesota conspiracy theory is that Urban Meyer is going to retire because of the whole, heart issues or whatever, and take a less stressful job, and that would be coaching Minnesota. We'll have to see. This upcoming week looking pretty awesome as well. If that last week was good, just wait. LSU, Auburn, as we mentioned. Oklahoma, Missouri, battle of undefeateds. And also another Big 12 matchup, Nebraska, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, who has a top 3 offense in Division I as well. Well, we have to go to commercial break, but coming back on the other side, we're going to talk about Michigan's opponent 2 weeks from now. That's the struggling Penn State Nittany Lions. Welcome back to Varsity Blue. Scott Wagner, Adam Brewster, Alex Prasad. We're moving the focus now to Michigan's opponent, not this upcoming Saturday, but the Saturday after, which is Penn State. Not the Penn State that we're used to seeing, guys, this year. Take a look at what's happened in their season so far. Beating Youngstown State in that first week. At Alabama, a loss, not surprising. Penn State win, but Temple, that was a very, very close game as well. Losses to Iowa, and then a 33-13 loss at home against Illinois, where Fieldhouse looked just like Denard Robinson, dare I say, in the first couple weeks. Robert Bolden beat out former Michigan recruit Kevin Newsom, who loves to play the piano, by the way. I learned after meeting the Penn State media guy. That's a little bit of nice revenge. Kevin Newsom was a quarterback in the class of Denard and Tate before Denard and Tate and Shavadra Beaver came around. So Penn State really struggling And let's move focus now to how Michigan matches up with the Nittany Lions. Big struggles against the mobile quarterback when they played Illinois, Scott. How do you see Michigan's offense attacking this Penn State defense, whose biggest, that they got a lot of injuries, A, and B, their biggest weakness, believe it or not, is linebackers.
Amazing, yeah, linebacker U, as that graphic was saying. Not so much the case this year for the Nittany Lions, and let's see if Michigan will have 2 weeks to prepare for this game with the bye week coming next week. So luckily they'll be able to study a lot of tape for Penn State and see how to utilize Denard Robinson, who should be healthy in 2 weeks, by the way, Rich Rodriguez says. Let's see if they can move him out of the pocket and make linebackers really have to realize what's going on and make good cuts to the ball. Because if these Penn State Nittany Lion linebackers struggle like they have been, Denard Robinson could really have a field day on this team.
That Illinois game, for as scary as it might be, and for what it portends perhaps when Michigan plays Illinois at home, also gives Michigan a lot of hope this upcoming week.
It certainly does, but you got to expect that Penn State's going to be fired up to go back to that game solely for the fact that they got embarrassed on their home field, and they don't lose many games at Beaver Stadium. It's going to be a night game. The crowd is going to be very into it. Michigan's going to have to come out and strike early like they did in 06 when they went to Happy Valley and walked all over the Nittany Lions.
Right, that 06, I'm sorry. I'm thinking 08, which also was a close game for a while there until Nick Sheridan got safetied in his own end zone, and then just a whole kaboom of awfulness happened. Also, Brandon Miner ran for over 100 yards in that first half of that game. That was phenomenal. What about the defense, though, Scott? It seems like the perfect matchup, right? Struggling freshman quarterback playing against struggling defense, maybe a defense that's improved in the past couple weeks. That's up, for the viewer to decide. Is this is this a good matchup for the Michigan defense?
Well, I'm not sure. Good is that may be a little too optimistic. I don't think it's. I think Michigan matches up in some situations well. Definitely, Robert Bolden will need to have a lot of composure. That's really what's beaten Michigan the past couple weeks. Is a very composed quarterback. Kirk Cousins and Ricky Stanzi, respectively, for Michigan State and Iowa, controlling the ball well, moving the ball on third downs when they had to against Michigan, not turning the ball over. That's what really hurt Michigan, is the inability for the defense to cause any type of turnovers and stop people on third downs. So Robert Bolden, maybe not as experienced. It will be a night game, which should be intimidating for the defense. For Michigan. May also be intimidating for a freshman. So we'll see. Maybe if Robert Bolden makes a lot of mental mistakes, they'll have to try to rely on the inside the tackles rushing game, which is probably the strength of Michigan's defense. So it could help them out in that instance.
Right, and the offensive line has been decimated by injuries. Penn State's I'm talking about, and also Evan Royster struggled so far this year.
Evan Royster, Penn State is 85th in rushing yards nationally. I'm looking for Michigan to get the pressure on Robert Bolden early. Hit him early, hit him often, get in his face. That is what they need to do. That's how you expose a freshman quarterback, and that's how you can force turnovers, something this Michigan defense hasn't been able to do very often.
All right, quickly, guys, predictions. Scott, will this season turn around here at night at Happy Valley?
Gosh, I'm sorry. I don't think it's a lost season, but I think they're going to lose this game.
Brewster?
I said Penn State.
You got fired. Your opinion doesn't matter.
I said Penn State would win from the get-go. But I think it's a must-win for Michigan, and I think they're going to come out and somehow win this game.
Oh, wow. Big vote of confidence there. Pick pick Michigan to win this game from the beginning, and I'm going to stick to it as well. I had them at whatever the record is right now, 5-2. All right, that's all we have time for this week on Varsity Blue. Be sure to check back 2 weeks from now, and hopefully we'll be talking about a big Michigan win.